So I want to talk a little bit about pressure and release and positive reinforcement in the way that I work with horses. So for example, I've got Bubba here, and he's a pony that just came in for training, and we're actually just starting some of his work with him. And one of the very first things that I teach a horse to do is how to back up. You see how he's pushing into my space, walking forward uninvited. 9 out of 10 horses do that. Most people just let their horses kind of push into them and don't correct them. And so what I want to do is I want to make sure I give them clarity to say, hey, no sir, even just that step I'm going to correct. Well, how did I do that? In order to work with the horse, I have to put some types of restrictions on them to kind of block out some of the options or choices that that horse might make. So if I just stood here all day just holding the lead rope, eventually he would take a step backwards on his own without me asking him to, okay? But I don't have all day, right? Most people don't have all day. And so when we are training our horse, we want to teach our horse how to get to that answer as quickly as possible. Doesn't mean that we rush them through, but in order to make the learning process more palpable, in order to encourage them to make better decisions, we need to set them up. And so when you're working with a horse, when you are doing pressure release, or whether you're, even if you're doing positive reinforcement, whatever you're doing with the horse, as the handler, it is your responsibility to set your horse up so that they are more likely to make a good decision. So every time he pushes forward, what I do is I add pressure and then I release the pressure. And when I talk about releasing the pressure, from a horse's sense of view, they love the release of pressure. They look for the release of pressure. To a horse, everything is pressure. Like, that's the reason why when you're going down a trail, just a little plastic bag could whip by and they freak out because of that perceived pressure. And so when that pressure goes away, that is a release. That is a reward for them. That is a positive thing. So when we do pressure and release, we look at the release as the reward, as the positive for that horse. So for example, I apply pressure, he moves off the pressure. He hasn't moved yet. I'm gonna wait for him. He moves off the pressure. I take the pressure away. He stands still. He stops moving, lowers his head a little bit. You can see him licking and chewing. He found a reward in that release. I'm gonna ask him again. I'm gonna back him up. I release the pressure. Again, he stands still, starts to lower that head. He's softening his eyes. Hey, good boy, stretching that neck. All good signs that he feels really, really comfortable and relaxed. So some people will look at pressure and release and they'll say, well, that's not positive reinforcement, that's negative reinforcement because you're taking something away. No, you're giving him peace. You're giving him something positive. And so a lot of people, and this is kind of a really big kind of newbie mistake with beginning horse people or people who really haven't worked a lot with a lot of horses, they think that, I need to give the horse a cookie, and if I give the horse a cookie, then that horse will appreciate me and learn. But actually the opposite happens, because instead of letting that horse kind of soak in what you just taught them, and I want to be very clear here, it's not that there's anything wrong with giving cookies. It just has to be done properly. It has to be done with good timing. And for me, if I'm ever going to treat a horse, they have to do it very respectfully and polite. You see a lot of horses that are treated, and you guys can go look on Google, TikTok, YouTube. You will see all of these Liberty horses doing work at Liberty. And I want you to look at the expression on that horse's face. Their ears are pinned back. They don't look like happy horses. In fact, they're kind of like, where's my next cookie? Yum, 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 where's my next cookie? And you can see them searching for it and tossing their heads and doing all of those things, because instead of connecting with you, being respectful to you, paying attention to you, they're just focused on that next cookie. So a lot of people go to the positive reinforcement of shoving cookies in their mouth because it works. It'll get you the result, but it doesn't get you a horse that's truly connected with you. You've just connected to their gut and they see you as their next source for a snack. What I want is when I apply pressure, I am putting them in a place of peace by taking the pressure away. I'm gonna back him up again, put him at peace by taking the pressure away. And every time he takes a step forward, I'm just gonna make it, there you go, good boy. I'm not gonna let him eat, but I'm gonna make it very clear that my goal here is for him to stay back on his haunches. Nope, I'm gonna back him up, there, good boy. And so as long as I'm consistent, he's gonna learn that that sense of peace, that release, that comes from me. That's what I want to develop with my horse, and that's what I'm talking about when we talk about pressure release, right? It actually is a form of positive reinforcement. It just isn't the traditional, do a trick, give you a cookie, do a trick, give you a cookie. It's like, figure this out. Horses are very inquisitive. Anybody who knows horses knows that they are so curious. They love puzzles. And so in order to help my horse solve the puzzle, I'm taking away some of the options, right? So let's say we're working on the borders, working on all the flat pieces, right? So I'm taking away all the middle pieces of the puzzle, right? And we just have the flat pieces to choose from. That's what a lead rope is. When I'm holding him here, like, I'm taking away options. It's like, no, you got to stay here with me. So running over there isn't an option right now. Backing up to those trailers isn't an option. Jumping over the rail and going that's not an option. Right now, I'm taking away literally millions of options and narrowing down his choices so that I can help to direct and lead him to the right place. The last thing I'll say about this, because this is so important for people to understand, is when we are working with a horse, it's not about making him do the right thing. And you can do that. That's kind of the old school way of horsemanship, get after that horse, make that horse do that, and you can do that. And again, it does work. It'll get you the result, but long term it doesn't, because it'll only work as long as you are the biggest, baddest, scariest thing. So if you have, beat a horse or add pressure on a horse or whatever to make them back up, if a plastic bag whizzes by and that horse is more attentive to that plastic bag and more afraid of that plastic bag than they are you, it doesn't matter how much you're in their mouth, they're not going to do what you ask them to, because the plastic bag has all of their attention. And so what your goal is when you work with your horse, if you want it to be meaningful, and if you want them to connect and willingly work with you, your goal has to be to just lead them and then allow them to choose. It's the old adage, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. It's so true. You got to lead them there and just make it clear, okay, this is your option. Do you want to drink? And when they do drink, take some pressure off of them. Let them know that they made a good decision by choosing to connect with you. I don't know about you, but I don't like to be told to do anything, right? I much rather choose and make my own choices. And it's so much more meaningful for our horses when they are able to discover that being with us is a good place, that connecting with us is a nice place to be. I gave him lots of clarity, and he's had options to step forward, but he's done a good job of staying back. He's thinking about taking a step here, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and give him some clarity here and say, hey, rock back onto those haunches. Take the pressure away, and now he's at peace, and you can see he's getting more relaxed without feeling that he has to be right up here in my space and pushy and mouthy and those types of things, just in just a few moments of giving him clarity. How did I do it? Pressure, release, pressure, release. And now he has some self-carriage. He's confident standing there on his own because I guided him there and gave him that clarity in that direction.